We're going to talk about marketing as a mindset. So this is all about technology, and it's technology rising. And there's new technology coming out all the time. And I do work for a technology vendor. I work for Salesforce.com. They acquired Pardot after ExactTarget acquired us. But we don't really need to talk about technology for the moment. I want to talk about the use of technology, the adoption of technology, and what you need to know. Because what you're about to go into is you're about to have about 5 to 10 years of a lot of new technology really affecting your business. And if you don't understand how to adopt it, how to put it into place, you're not going to get the best value out of it. So as opposed to me telling you what those new technologies are, there's plenty of vendors going to do that for you. What I want to do is let's talk about the new function of marketing as a mindset and not just a department. A couple more notes about me. So my mother only put one T in my name, so it's Mathew with one T. She didn't want people to call me Matt. I don't know why, but that's the logic. My last name is Sweezey, so everyone calls me Sweezey. No one ever calls me Matt anyways, so it's no big deal. And then I thought it'd be really slick and combine those two things together and have M. Sweezey. And then about 8 months ago, my buddy was like, "Hey man, who's Miss Wheezy?" And I was like, God. Kind of bit me in the ass on that one. But anyways, that's me, some fun facts. So let's kind of hop into this. Anytime I like to talk, I always want to start off so we all are on the same page. And I know we have a lot of statistics. I'm a big fan of statistics, a big fan of numbers. Primarily my role is research and speaking, so I'd run a lot of our research reports. So I do things such as like the lifetime value of an email address. You know, based on how often somebody changes their jobs, we should be able to know and guesstimate how long of, what's the lifetime expectancy on this email address. So we can guesstimate, how good is our actual email database based on that data. So it's types of stuff like that. So I'm going to share some of these things with you, and then we're going to kind of roll in. And the reason I want you to know these things is because having this as an understanding will get us all on the same page, and it'll help everything else make sense. I always start every presentation with this slide, and there's a reason I like to start with this slide. It talks about NASA, and NASA is smart. We all know NASA is smart, right? But this is how smart we are, right? So everyone knows Google. Everyone uses Google. Here's a good thing. Has anyone ever taught you how to use Google? All right, now think about this fact. Right? No one taught you how to use this, but when you do a single Google search, you harness more power technology-wise than it takes to land a man on the moon. Right? And no one taught you how to use that. So one of the things I look at is learned behavior versus taught behavior. Right? And we'll talk about this in a second, but no one taught you how to manage your email inbox either, did they? Right? But you have a very specific way of how you manage an email inbox, and you want to know a fascinating fact is that you can disqualify an email in a 20th of a second. But no one taught you how to do that. It's just fascinating how the mind works. Anyways, these are some things we need to know because we're marketing to consumers. We need to understand how they think so that we can understand how to communicate with them effectively. That's what our jobs are. We're communicators. Right? Here's an interesting fact. A consumer is in front of a screen 12 hours a day. Who's got a screen in front of them right now? Please be like, "Hey, M. Sweezey," on Twitter. That's why my handle's up there on my slides. All right. So next thing you've got, here's another fascinating fact. Mobile. We all talk about mobile and how we need to have a mobile strategy. If you don't have a mobile strategy, it's not that hard. The answer is called responsive design. But here's what you need to know. There's more people that have access to a mobile device than have access to clean drinking water or electricity. That's a baffling fact. Think about that on a global scale. If you do any type of global marketing, mobile is probably going to be the easiest way to reach people. Also, the fact is, when are people reading their emails? So part of what I also get to do is interview people. So I sat down with CNN, the head of content for CNN, and I was talking with her about how they publish their content. She goes, "We publish 3 times a day. The last time we publish is between 7 and 8 o'clock at night." She goes, "That's when we usually have a 60% hit rate because we know people are at home on an iPad and they're wanting to engage with content once they get done eating supper." Fascinating stuff, right? So let's talk about one more thing. What does this mean? Someone's in front of a screen 12 hours a day. Someone's got a mobile device. They're always connected. What does that mean for us as a brand? Our brand is always in front of somebody 24/7. And that's what I want you guys to understand, is that if you, as in a single department, try to manage your entire brand and your entire company presence online, it is unsustainable because it's impossible for you as a department to do that. So what we're going to talk about is not how to use technology to do this, but how to use mindset. Here's some other things that have changed. Marketing as an actual practice has changed because consumers and technology have changed. Here's a couple things. First off, we used to do mass marketing. Oh, and I first gave this presentation in Denver. That's why you see cowboy hats, is because when I go to DIN, there's more cowboy hats than in Texas. Anyone from Colorado? Texas? Good, I didn't offend anybody. All right, here we go. Here's another fascinating thing, right? Rapport building used to only be in sales. That's where we used to have all the rapport building. As a marketer, if you go back 10, 15 years, our job was to brand, right? Now, who here started in, who's B2C first off? Raise your hand. All right. A couple people. Who dreamed of being a B2C marketer but ended up in B2B? I did. That's a lot of us, right? It's a sad thing that we say that, but it's true, right? When you graduated school, when you're sitting in school, what did we study? We studied Coca-Cola case studies. We studied CPG. We studied all this kind of things. And in our heads, B2B was the unsexy, oh my gosh, I hope I don't have to end up there, right? That's what it was. My dad always used to tell me, not all doctors made A's. Marketers who didn't make A's, we went to B2B, right? That's how we kind of ended up there. It's not that way anymore. It's not that way at all. But when I remember when I was in school, I said, man, B2B, I don't want to be putting an ad of some kind of machinery in a trade publication because that is so boring and life-sucking, I can't imagine it. But that's not what it is anymore, because back then all we did was branding. But now let's talk about what we have now. We have the internet. Remember, I told you no one taught you how to use Google, you learned on your own. And that power of that technology and the speed that it can bring information to you, this is now the use case. You now don't want to talk to somebody. So you are 2/3 of the way through a sales cycle before you want to talk to a salesperson. That stat comes from Consumer Marketing Index, or excuse me, I forgot, I'll tell you later. On stage, sometimes I forget things. It's all right, you know, not perfect. All right, here we go. So now who owns rapport building? We own rapport building because 2/3 of the way through there, that's us. We own that before they talk to a salesperson. So if you go back and you overlay those lines and look at rapport building, we now have the majority share of rapport building. Yet most of our content is not like that. Most of our content is very sales focused. So we need to kind of understand these things. What's the other part of this? Inbound marketing. We all understand this term. We all do SEO. We all do content so we can get people to us, right? Here's a couple of new pieces of technology that have come out. Account-based marketing. Is anybody using an account-based marketing platform? All right. Anyone heard of RTB or real-time buying? All right, this will blow your mind. All right, we used to measure online advertising in a CPM, cost per thousand, right? So you would say, for me to have one impression with my target audience, I need to have 1,000 impressions of randomness so that I can get one person I actually want to get in front of. So you bought your ads in groups of 1,000, CPM. RTB is the idea that that no longer needs to happen. Because we have the idea and the ability to track an IP and a cookie, and we also now have real-time bid systems. So the moment a person lands on a website, that advertising that's on that side can actually go through a real-time bid system and say, I know whose IP this is, I know what person this is, I know what ad needs to go there in real time, and so you're only buying one ad for one person in real time no matter where they are. So that's an RTB. So this concept of account-based marketing is going to be a big new thing coming up. You've got marketing automation, which is what my company primarily has done. And so these are some stats that I researched. This year you have 53% of B2B Fortune 500. There's only 32 inside of the Fortune 500 that are true B2B that can use demand generation techniques to affect their bottom line tomorrow. That means the majority of their revenues do not come from large government contracts, right? So that's the breakdown of that one. So you've got marketing automation as a new technology. You've got retargeting. Anyone use retargeting? All right, good, good. Now, there's a lot of things that retargeting, you will see happening with retargeting. Anyone do lead nurturing right now? What method do you use? What's the delivery vehicle for your nurturing? Email. Say it a little bit louder. Email. There you go. She got it right. You get a gold star. Yeah. All right. We can put it on the wall like next to all the other students. All right. I feel like professor today. This is a great audience. All right. Thanks for laughing at my jokes. Anyway, so you got retargeting, right? But right now we look at lead nurturing as email only. It's an email tactic. But what you're soon going to find is that retargeting and account-based marketing will tie into that same cookie and allow you to use nurturing via online advertising. I wrote an article about this. Me and the CMO of AdRoll got together and came up with this whole idea, and we'll start beta testing clients on these types of things. So you're going to start seeing a lot of new technology coming out. But what we also need to know is the amount of channels that are coming out. Did anyone read the Gartner report that said the CMO will have the largest budget by 2015? All right, gold star. This girl's on fire. Is your boss here? No. Oh, geez. I was going to say you need a raise, but anyways. All right, so here's the stats. 1960, there was 5 marketing channels. Now we have over 60, and very soon we're going to have hundreds. Why is that? Because the CMO has the largest budget. Technology follows money. So now the largest budget is in the marketer's hands, so what are most of the tools going to be built for? New marketing ways to reach people. Right, so you got to look at this going forward in the future. What does this mean? A couple of things. I just said that stat. What it means is there's going to be an unlimited amount of different channels that you're going to have to manage, and they're all bi-directional, which means you can't control what goes on them. That should be a very scary thing for everybody. Because what we've had is we've had control. If you go back to when rapport building was only in the sales hands, there was a single view. For me to get a view of a company, I had to talk to a salesperson or talk to an existing client. Those were very, very siloed, very controlled things because the only clients that we were going to tell people about were good clients. Those are the only ones we're going to make public, right? We don't have that control anymore. And go back to those stats we talked about earlier. People are always on, always doing these things. They're everywhere. So what you need to understand is also that this information now lives forever and it's also trusted because these come from individuals, right? They come from third parties who don't have any type of a benefit from putting up some type of a review, such as Glassdoor. You can go and interview with a company. If you don't like that interview, you can put a review on Glassdoor. I had that happen, and I wanted to punch the guy in the face, but I can't because I'm an employee of the company. What's he going to do if I do that? He's going to go back online and be like, I wrote a bad review, and then the guy punched me in the face. Exactly, right? So his exact words were, if my title is evangelist. I met somebody one day, and I met him like 2 weeks later, and I actually explained what I do for a living, and they're like, thank God you explained it. I thought you were an evangelical professionally. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I'm glad I explained to you what I do. Anyway, so lives forever, and it's trusted, right? That's what you need to know. So it's going to grow in scale, it's trusted, and people actually listen to this, right? Now the next thing you need to understand is experience equals perception. So if we can't control the experience now somebody's going to have with our brand and that actually controls their perception, now what we have is a giant unmanageable asset that we are responsible for as one division. But now you also have to say, now where do these different experiences happen, right? They used to only happen between the sales rep and the consumer. But now where do they happen? Support. They happen on Twitter. You can have a salesperson. We have this all the time. You'll have a person sit on a demo and then tweet out right after the demo their thoughts of the demo to the world, right? What now can that be? A competitor can use that because that tweet lives forever, and they can now send that URL, positive or negative, to all the people in their prospects. Now they have instant things, right? So now what we need to see is that you now have a lot of different things that you are responsible for, yet you can't control. I can't control that demonstration. I can't control that support call. I can't control any of those things, yet they're all going to affect someone's perception, which is my role is to manage. Does that make sense? Can someone nod their head? Thank you. All right. Here's a nice little case study. All right, Off the Rack. Anybody shop on Off the Rack? It's a Canadian online kind of like a guilt or deal a day kind of thing. I had to learn about it too. I don't do any of that, but here we go. So A and B. Here's the split test. They had some orders that were bad. Everyone messes up. It's all about how you deal with it when you mess up. So what they did is they said, all right, let's do a split test. They took group A and they sent them all by email a $50 gift card to rebuy something on their website. They said group B, they did a personal phone call and they said, we are sorry. That's it. They didn't give them anything. They just picked up the telephone and they called somebody. What do you think the results were? Here's the question and how they measured the results. They sent a survey back out to everybody and they said, all right, are you more or less likely to buy again from us? Which group do you think was more likely to buy again and by what percentage? By how much? Exactly, 2 times, right? So experience means a lot to people. And experiences and impressions are very different things. If we rely only on impressions, we're missing half the battle, right? One of my favorite things to harp on marketers, and anyone, raise your hand, right? I think I have $1 in my wallet. I will give you that $1 if someone can actually answer this question. Have any of you picked up the telephone and called a prospect to actually ask them what they thought of any of your content? I get to keep my $1. Does that not baffle you? What's the best point of, you have so many positive things from that telephone call, right? First off, that person gets a positive experience other than the sales. Who's the only person that calls you from a company? It's a salesperson. What if the marketer calls you and says, hey, I want to really get your feedback on what you thought about that piece of content. Just because somebody downloaded that content does not mean you got the desired result out of it. They might think your content sucks, and you keep promoting that content, now promoting a bad experience. And I'll talk about why bad experiences are going to hurt you eventually in the end. Let's talk about costs. Costs continue to go up. Here's why. Because we're all in this content marketing kick. We're all in this SEO kick, right? So now we're in an arms race. What's that doing to the cost? It's just increasing and increasing and increasing. We do 100,000 tweets a day, right? If you weren't in SEO 5 years ago, it's going to be very hard for you to SEO optimize a website in a very, very tight vertical because of the money, the time, the way the algorithms work. You've got to do a lot of stuff to get that in there, right? So it's getting more expensive. And then here's the way your boss says to challenge it. Oh, just be more creative. As if creative is magic. Here's my equation for creative. Anytime someone says, just be creative, I say, you know what? I need headcount plus budget plus time. Then I can be creative. If you don't want to give me those things, don't tell me to be creative. It's not magic, right? There's an actual formula for it. So here we have to look at tools. Tools have changed. So this is a really good slide I want you guys to look at. If you follow the progression, what you'll see is the progression of most marketers over the past like 10 or 15 years. We started out with websites in about 1995. So we went through a phase of everyone needs to get a website. The next logical phase was now we need to get people to that website. So then SEO became big. Does anybody remember the days on LinkedIn before SEO was a job title? I do. And then you started watching it pop up. And then you started seeing gurus pop up. And you started seeing growth hackers pop up. Does anyone call themselves the growth hacker in this room? I'm not going to call you out. Don't raise your hand. But, all right, we'll talk about that later. But it's unsustainable growth hacking. We'll talk about that why. Anyways, email, SEO, social, automation. Now we're into a point where mindset has to be understood and needs to be the next big thing you adopt as an organization. Here's why. Mindset is going for a net positive gain with every interaction. If you're not getting a net positive gain with every experience and interaction, it's going to cause volatility, and we'll talk about that. What mindset is not? It is not branding. Who owns branding? Marketing. Thank you. Marketing owns branding. If only a single department does all your marketing and we go back to all of those different channels and where people can put things online, you have a disparity. You have somebody that doesn't care who's going to have an experience that's not going to be, that has potential to be negative because if they're not aligned with your goals, and we'll talk about how to check on that. Here's a hierarchy of demand generation that I go by. Mindset needs to be at the bottom. Here's why. Skunkworks is at the top. Those are like your crazy off-the-wall campaigns that you're testing. Here's why in just a second you'll see. And here's the Ship My Pants campaign. There was a P on that. Anybody remember this campaign Kmart did? All right, this is fascinating. I didn't think this was possible on how bad this campaign actually was. But when I was making this slide deck a couple weeks ago, I actually was like, all right, they've had a long time to recover from this. I just want to test them to see how well they recover. Is anyone Kmart's agency, by the way? Their agency was awesome. Kmart, on the other hand, had some problems. All right, first off, my impression of this campaign, it was a phenomenal campaign. And I don't base that off of personal judgment. Look at the shares, look at the reshares, look at the likes, look at all the press coverage it got. It won a lot of creative awards. But now what happened is a bad experience. Where do these reviews come from? They don't come from marketing. They come from people walking in the store and then rating this online. So what I did is I watched the Ship My Pants campaign, and then I do what any other normal American does, is we go online and we type that into Google to go to Kmart. You don't type in Kmart.com, you go right to Google, type in Kmart. And what does that bring up? That brings up these reviews. So you just watch a great advertisement, and then the first thing you see about that brand are bad reviews. I consider a 2 out of 5 star a pretty bad review. Would anyone agree 2 out of 5 stars is pretty bad? All right. Next thing, I go to the website. I actually say, well, let's not stop there. The website was broken. They just spent tens of millions of dollars to drive me to the website so I could buy things online, and the website was broken. Another negative experience. So here's what we have. We have volatility. So I'm going to get into some mathematics here. Anyone do stocks? Most people have all probably seen them, read them, understand them. When you have somebody that rises above and is actually a winner in the stock market, what they're actually able to do is rise above volatility, which means every day they're gaining more than they lose. The problem is you have a lot of people that have too much volatility. And a market or a group usually has the same amount of volatility. So you and all your competitors probably have the same amount of volatility with the consumer's experience. There's probably the same amount of positives and negatives. What you want to do is you want to have net positive higher so you can rise above that volatility. That's the only way to create a sustainable marketing department, and that's through mindset. And when I say sustainable marketing department, your goal as a marketer should not have to ask for more budget every year. When your boss says we need to increase leads, you should be like, all right, I can do that, but I don't need to have another 15 whatever thousand or however much money you need. We should be able to be sustainable. And if we can't be sustainable, what's that going to mean is that we're going to have to constantly keep dumping more and more and more money because we're having to play that arms race. So we need to figure out a sustainable way to market, and that's mindset. So once again, impressions versus experiences. Experiences cost less. That case study proved it, right? Now let's talk about what is mindset. How do we remove it? Did everyone shop on Zappos? Everyone knows that his dude's like going crazy. Oh, yeah, he's got some Zappos boots on right now, I see. All right, so here's what you got. Everyone knows the story about Zappos. Everyone understands the culture of Zappos. There are a lot of books on this. Tony's made it famous. He really brought the idea of company culture to the forefront, right? Why was that so big? because when they had company culture and everyone was on the same page and everyone followed and everyone knew that they were focused on the consumer and the customer, everything changed inside that organization. They didn't have to spend money on a shoe store. It's a shoe store online. Do you know of any other shoe store? Can you name another shoe store that's online? I can say Piper Lime because I've shopped on Gap and they always just have it up there, right? That's about it. Anyways, so here's what you need to do to have a mindset. It has to be in your DNA. Here's how you determine if it is in your DNA or not. You ask these 3 questions. Pull 10 people from different departments at different levels inside your organization and ask these 3 questions. If everyone can't answer these 3 simple questions the same way, you do not have a company mindset. You will be battling all different types of experiences. Here are those questions. What do you value in a customer? Simple question. What do you as a company value in a customer? If not everyone can answer that same question the same way, you have a serious problem. And it's marketing's problem is where it's going to end up. Right? Next, what do we value in an employee? Right? You need to understand, people need to know what you value in them. This is the whole empowerment of an individual. You need to be able to empower people because when they feel empowered, they act very differently. And then the third thing is, what do we consider success? If they can't answer that basic question of what do you consider success, you have another major problem, right? So these are all 3 questions that you can just easily ask and figure it out. It needs to be managed. You need to have somebody that manages this. The problem is we have a lot of silo, or I'm going to call sovereign departments, that don't necessarily consider their job as marketing. You've got product. Product does not see themselves as marketing. Yet we all know the adage. What costs more? Getting a new customer or retaining a customer? Well, yeah, that's cheaper. It costs more to get a new customer. I may have said that the wrong way, right? So when you want to retain customers, product is the easiest way to retain customers. So if they don't understand that part of their job is also to help increase the marketing and keep the demand up, right? Because people are going to tweet about their experiences. I used to be on the sales side. So if somebody tweeted out something negative, I grabbed that and I made a giant list and had them all. So someone's like, oh, I'm looking at this technology. And be like, oh, here's everything bad anyone's ever said about them. Have fun, you know? You can't have that happen, right? Next, we need to make sure they're empowered. Here's a couple of good books of talking about empowered. Anyone a Patagonia fan, the brand? I'm a massive Patagonia fan. I would love to go meet Yvon. He's the owner. He's the guy that started Patagonia. But he wrote the book, Let My People Go Surfing. And he's got a new one out. I don't know what it's called. If anyone knows it, shout it out. But you should definitely read that book. It will very much help you align and understand this idea of mindset. Patagonia has a great brand, and they do a lot of awesome things, but they also all have a great company mindset, right? Now we're going to talk about a case study. This case study is about a company I've worked for, so I'm not going to talk about competitors or who we are, but I just want you to understand the basics of the math on this equation, right? It doesn't matter who the players are, the math is what matters, right? So this company had no VC money. The combined amount of VC money that they were competing against was over $350 million, and they had none. So you're talking about no budget, right? Next thing, 1/10 of the sales staff of their closest competitor. So 3 salespeople versus 1 competitor with 30, another with 60. So it's very different organizations. Next, 1 marketer until 2011. This company started in 2007. Only 1 marketer, right? And then you've got 1/20 of the marketing budget of their closest competitor. So this is like the David and Goliath of epic proportions, right? How's it turn out? 70% win rate for this company. Anytime they went up in a head-to-head deal, it was a 70% win rate. Any given quarter, they were only 20 deals shy of the leader in the space, who was spending 20 times the budget, had 30 more, 10 times the salespeople, and they were only selling 20 more deals on that massive, massive difference, right? These things should be kind of like, wow, how does that happen? Goodwill. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, right? Remember the whole thing that, nice guys finish last? It is not true with social media because bad people have bad things written about them and they always get thrown back in their face. However, nice people have nice things written about them and they can leverage those and those go to a positive experience, right? Back to that volatility. If you read something negative, it's going to give you a negative experience with that brand. The only way to raise your positive notion or to get back in that evoke set is to spend more money. Everyone familiar with the term evoke set? Anyone remember that from school? All right, if I ask you to name 5 hamburger chains, shout them out. That's your evoke set. It's the first things that you recall when you're asked a question, right? So that's the whole idea of being top of mind. The technical term, the psychology, is being in your evoke set. All right? So here's how that company did that. They had 3 core values: positive, self-starting, and supportive. Any hire in any department had to meet these 3 characteristics. Before anybody was hired, they went through a final interview with a culture team that says, if you don't fit the culture, if we don't think you're positive, if we don't think you're self-starting, and we don't think you're supportive, you're not going to get hired. Right? So everyone in the organization understood these 3 things. They also understood these 2 things. Right? We want to be the best place to be a customer and the best place to work. So every employee was empowered, as well as they knew what their goal was whenever they interacted with a customer. They wanted to be the best place to be a customer. That was their goal when they had an interaction. That's all it took. It didn't take money. It didn't take people. It took a company mindset, right? Long story short, this company got acquired for $2.5 billion. That was the largest acquisition in this space, right? So back again, impressions versus experiences. Impressions are kind of okay. Experiences are what we need to really be focused on moving forward in the future, because those are going to be the things that increase and decrease. Those are the things that cause volatility, the serious volatility. Right? And those are the things that if we have a bad impression, we then have to spend more money to overcome in the future to get that person back. Right? Mindset is powerful. It allows small organizations or nimble or no money organizations to compete in very, very, very competitive spaces against great odds. Right? It's holistic. Everyone in your organization, it allows them to all be on the same page so that everybody has a consistent positive experience with your brand no matter where it comes from. So it's always going to be reflected back online as a positive brand and a positive experience. And it's sustainable. It doesn't cost money to have mindset. It costs money to do all the other types of marketing things we talk about. Mindset's something that you can control in a world where nothing is going to be controllable very soon. Right? And this is my closing kind of slide. Anyone remember this ad with the Indian cries? It's like one of the classic PSAs of all time. Guy throws a piece of trash out of the car, and the Indian stands by the road, and he sheds a tear. So my closing statement is, get involved now, because bad experiences hurt all of us. Right? Mind share is the only way, and mindset's the only way to get around those bad experiences.